I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 10. Something's just nostalgic about coming back to the old base and just giving a nice look at everything around us, and basically how far we've come so far. Now, there is a reason why I came back to the base, and because this is where we talked about storage. Oh yeah, did I mention storage a few episodes ago? And so I wanted to come full circle back to where we did all of our storage. Now, the reason why we need to talk about storage today is because we have a ton of items that are being produced and are going to be produced in the future in different locations. And what we need is a way to create those items in those locations and to get them back to the main storage. And that means we also need a place to store things. And so today I want to devise a storage solution that should last us through the end of the series. But there's just one problem. So far, I've got the upstairs area, aka the castle, done sort of. Like we have like the idea like kind of cemented already. And so I know kind of what items and what block palette I kind of am going with. But the block palette that I haven't picked out yet actually belongs in the tech area. Yes, so our AE area, which by the way may look a little bit different since the last time you've seen it, because I'm already kind of figuring out how I want to lay out my applied energistics network. But this right here is where I want to put said storage that we're going to be focusing on today. But I got to come up with a color palette, and I want it to kind of match our applied energistics system. So it is going to probably be on the darker side of things, but is also going to incorporate these kind of colors, like this purple and pink theme, I think. Ooh, and possibly some green. I would really like to see some of this like darker green possibly mixed in with the purple. I think that looks really good. And it's also going to give off that sci-fi vibe that I actually have planned for this underground area. Now, before we get started with the storage and before we get started with adjusting our applied energistics system, there is one thing that I probably should get set up right away and have it start producing, so when we get to applied energistics, we'll have the resources available. And that is going to be setting up a soul extractor. Now, a soul extractor is a very, very powerful piece of equipment in mystical agriculture. It allows us to simulate us using a soul sword from mystical agriculture, which is kind of a pain to do, by the way, to fill up these jars. So yes, it uses these daggers, and typically you would kill mobs with the daggers and having soul jars in your inventory, and the soul jar would slowly fill up. But what we can do here instead is we can fill the soul jars from the soul extractor. And I've already crafted up a Supremium machine hull upgrade, and as soon as our quests kick in, there we go, this right here goes in the top right, and we give this some power with a gate, and this thing does wonders. This thing is going to be so nice for us. You can also use coal, by the way, but we can now, for example, for sheep, like if let's say we want a sheep seed, right? We're going to need a soul jar filled with sheep. There's a couple of ways we can get this. We can either use wool to fill this up or mutton. And so this just saves us from needing to kill so many entities, which takes a really long time, by the way. Now, I only have 52 wool, and I don't know if this is going to be enough, but I do know where I can get some wool. So we got to put the jars in here, right? Jars, soul jars, and we can only do one at a time. But look at that. That is now filling up, and we kind of get an idea, too, of how much it's going to take to fill each jar. So I'm going to have to go find a structure that has some wool in it. Oh, and I know just the place. Look at all this wool, and these guys won't even be able to bother me, right? Because we have a jetpack. Oh, this is going to be perfect. And the wool dye color doesn't matter whatsoever. So let's just grab at least 3 stacks of this. So 3 operations worth. And let's get out of here. Yeah, this definitely wouldn't be modded Minecraft if we didn't have at least at some point through our playthrough a jar of liquid sheep. Oh, and by the way, these use Solium seed bases whenever you go to craft these. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So with a boop here and a boop here, we'll go ahead and also get the seed placed in. We have to replace the one that's in here. There we go. And we'll get the rest of our jars in. We're going to have sheep seeds, and these are going to be so powerful for making dense cables from applied energistics in the future. So the sooner I can get this up and running, the better. This is going to make things so nice in the future. Oh, and if you missed how these farms work, be sure to check out the last episode. And also, while you're doing that, check if you've subscribed. Like, be sure to click that subscription button if you haven't already. I mean, it's honestly the freest button you could ever click, and I tell you what, you won't regret your decision. Oh yeah, I decided to use statues here and kind of make these look like chessboards to fit that, you know, magic aesthetic. So I guess now's the moment of truth. Feral Flare lantern time. If you don't know what the Feral Flare lantern is, boy, you have been missing out. What this allows me to do is go in and break all of my lights that I have placed in, and this will illuminate basically the entire area. I may end up removing this in the future, but I think for right now, this might be the best solution instead of having all of these source lights all around. There we go. Most of the lights are turned off. It does look like there is a source light here. And there's probably one lingering over here. This is the problem with setting these lights to invisible. It can be really hard to find them. Okay, so now with most of the lighting removed, man, we can really see how cool Applied Energistics looks when it's in darkness. But I don't want it to be in darkness, right? I actually want this to be down one more. So let's place our mega torch down one more. This actually emits a lot of light, but we'll place the lantern on top of that. And what should happen is the area is going to start kind of exploding with lights slowly but surely. Yes, all of the lights are being placed. The cool part is whenever you break this, all of these lights should disappear as well. So this is a great way of lighting up your base, especially if you don't want to place torches. My only complaint with it is you can't be very specific about where light gets placed. It places about 16 blocks away or something like that. But yeah, you can't be specific with it. And later on, I think I'm going to want to break it. That way I can more precisely choose where I want light to be. So now, as much as I would love to go ahead and start decorating, I think right now what I want to do is I want to get the storage solution up and running, and then we can worry about that. However, I have kind of thought about how I am going to house our storage, right? And how I'm going to, and what mod I'm going to actually use for our overall base storage. And that mod is going to be none other than functional storage, because I just can't see myself using anything else at this point. Functional storage has become such a good mod for storage, especially with its wireless functionality that it has now. So using a centralized controller will be a great idea for having a place to send and connect to our Applied Energistics system. And this is going to be for bulk storage, basically storing all of our essences and things like that. And so to get started with this, I'm going to use a 2x2 frame drawer, but I'm going to decorate this. So if you don't want to worry about decorating, just use the wood ones, right? But in this case, I'm going to show you how you can make this look like anything you want. For example, I want to basically make this drawer right here. And to be able to make this custom drawer with a purple line down the middle and dark backgrounds, there's a couple of things that we're going to need, right? I'm going to use the kiwi, I'm going to use some mud that's retextured, and I'm going to use some purple concrete. So let's go ahead and get the texture. I'm going to use the mud pillar top, which I think looks really, really good for the theme that I'm going. And we basically put this in the bottom left, right? This is where we put our drawer. And then up top, we should be able to put the pillar, and I believe on the bottom, and then in the middle, so the bottom right defines the front face border, and then the top here defines the entire outer shell, and then the kiwi up in the top right defines the center or the part that the item is going to reside on whenever you go to put the item in here. So this is what I'm going to set it up as. And this means that I can actually automate this with Applied Energistics, believe it or not. We just have to define the recipe just like that. So this is going to make crafting this so much easier. So let's go into standard crafting, and then we put this in here, and I think we do it in the bottom right of this, and it should give us the recipe when done. So just like this, and notice this did create a pattern for it, and we can just assign it. So now I can dump my ingredients in here, and it's just going to be able to auto craft it. That makes it so much easier to make those. And there it is. Look, and it's going to make the exact one. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I am going to have to assign patterns for making the actual drawer itself. And because of Mystical, by the way, doing that is incredibly easy because we can just make any log. And I recommend sticking with a log if you're going to go with like using wood in certain setups. I recommend if you're building patterns, this is for AE or refined, it doesn't really matter. Stick with a log type. right? It just makes the workflow of auto crafting down the road so much easier. Now with the drawers finished, I'm just going to place them just like so. So I designed these little areas right here to kind of look like lightning bolts, but they're also to mention like power and energy, which is what we're going to be handling right here, basically. And so this fits, I think, really well with that purple design that we got going on here. And voila, they're all in. And yes, they do look a little weird as of right now, but they will look a lot better in the future. Kind of just looks like a lot of lines right now. But I think this is going to work out perfect. Now, how are we going to link all of these to a central storage? And that's where the controller from this mod comes into play. And that controller I actually want right here because I do plan on having a bundle of cables that are going to be all wrapped around this. And this one central cable is still going to reside here. So even if we update this in the future, this is not going to be a problem. So the controller by itself is probably not going to have enough range to be able to actually reach these. So to find out how much range it has, you shift right click with the linking tool from the mod, and then we can actually see the range. Yeah, not enough, but we can actually upgrade the range. So you can shift right click on here, and there are some slots, and all you have to do is add these upgrades to it to increase the range. And I'm hoping the netherite upgrade is going to be enough for this, which we did have to sacrifice the smithing template for. But if I put this in here now and check, ooh, we are just right on the edge, but I think we could also multiply it even more by adding another smaller upgrade. And quite literally all I needed to add to this was a simple copper upgrade. And now we are within range all the way up to here, which is exactly where we need to be. And now with that done, we just need to go in and add all of this. And I like to set this to the multiple mode, and I can just select this entire area and voila, like that. They should all get added, right? There we go. Perfect. Same on this. I'll just click this area, go all the way up here, right click, and they're all added here too. And I can do the same for all of the rest. And man, this really starts to look cool whenever we have all of them linked. You can definitely see through the walls what all containers are linked. So now that they're all linked, something important to do is to probably utilize the configuration tool down here. And what I like to do, make sure it's on locking mode and just right click the controller. By right-clicking that controller, all of these drawers are now essentially locked, meaning that if we were to hopper into them from this controller, nothing is going to be able to go into them yet. Now, to be able to hook the applied logistics system to this is where we are going to utilize a storage bus. And the way a storage bus works is it will attach to an inventory and allow the network, the applied logistics system, to actually interact with that container. So AutoCrafts can pull items in. It can also send items to that container. Pretty cool and really, really useful for subnets in a very specific way. It can actually read the inventory of an applied logistics system through an interface. And this is actually an integral part of applied logistics by allowing you to set up subnets that can actually read your other network without being a part of it. Now, yeah, I just kind of threw at you a pretty complex concept, but it's really simple in this case. All we have to do is place it in just like so. And I typically like to change the priority to something higher, just to make sure that it is the first thing that it's going to try to send items to and also pull from. So there's nothing in the storage yet, and that means nothing's going to show up. But if I was to add something, it would definitely start working and we would start to see this. But how are we going to get the items from somewhere else into here, right? Because that's kind of the whole point. Well, for that, I'm going to introduce you to a very simple but hidden mod that you may not know about. That mod is the secretive Super Factory Manager, which we have already utilized, believe it or not, as this mod is the one that adds the functionality for the anvil dropping on items to split enchants off, right? So Super Factory Manager up front looks kind of complicated, but I'm going to show you how not complicated it actually is. So as of right now, we have our factory manager and we can place this down. And how is this actually going to work, right? Because when you open this up, you're like, wow, this is very confusing, right? Well, what we're going to need from Super Factory Manager is a disk. And by the way, the short name that everybody calls this mod is SFM. So Super Factory Manager for short, but we are going to need a program disk. Not too bad for us to make. And there we go. And now that we have this, we're just about ready to start. We can put this disk inside of here. And what I recommend is just hit view examples. this is it. This is all you have to worry about. View examples and just a simple program is all we need. This is it. So we can actually change the name of our program, but if we just leave it like it is, this is going to work just fine. Now, you see we do have an input from A and an output from or to B. This is kind of important. We need to know what is going to be defined as A and what is going to be defined as B. But the thing to keep in mind is we're moving the input from A to the output B. So A needs to be our import, B needs to be our controller, right? And how do we define these things, right? How do we take this? So if I do a program here and I copy this, right? And I hit done. I think this, by the way, has already loaded. When you hit done, it already loads the example. But if you go to edit, you can see that example code right there. It's actually running. You can see it's already running right now. But the way we define what something is by using a label gun from the mod. So the label gun, we can shift right click on the controller. So it says pulled labels from the manager. And so now you can see we have A and B. So we need to define what these are. Taking a look again at that program, we're going to notice that input is A and output is B. We already have our output. So let's go ahead and select B, and then we're going to right click the controller. Controller is now defined as B. I think that's pretty cool. So now what are we going to use for the input? Ah, yes. This is kind of important, right? So what we're going to use is the dimensional storage that we had already used before, but this is how we're going to handle the items going in to this location. And so since this is the input, this is going to be defined as, if we right click, this is going to be defined as A. So now we have defined A and B, and all we have to do is right click on here, and it said push the labels to the manager. And so now what this is doing is it is checking the dimensional chest every 20 ticks, pulling all of the items out of it, and immediately sending it to the storage controller. Okay, so I hope that was easy to understand. I know it kind of looks scary with the code, but I promise you, the code is just simply you clicking a button and it just does a thing. And the fact that this pulls all of the items out of that container every 20 ticks and immediately inserts it makes this very, very worthwhile. Now, of course, we need to test our work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one iron inside of this container. And if I put the iron inside of here, we should see it get pulled out. All of this should get pulled out. And you can see it happens very fast. And the items get inserted immediately into here. That is exactly what we want to see, and is why I think this is going to be one of the most powerful ways of sending our items around. And something else to note real quick that is going to be really, really helpful to us is if we ever needed to edit any of these drawers, like we place something in that needed to be unlocked, we can just shut this off by simply pulling out the program. And we can put the program back in, right? Everything is going to work just fine. But yeah, we can shut it off by just pulling the disk out. So at this point, let's put this bad boy to use. So how exactly are we going to do this? Well, what I want to do is I want to go back up here into the castle and where we have our main farm currently working. And then what I want is I want to make sure that I can get all of these essences compacted. And so what I can do to move this around and take this somewhere is I can use packing tape and I can just pick this up. So I can wrap it up and I can break it. So now the farm is going to stop. And this is for good reason. Right now, what I want to do is replace it with a new dimensional chest, and everything should end up getting inserted into the dimensional chest. Just like that. It's just going to continue working, right? This is kind of important. So what I can do is I can access that dimensional chest from over here, from back underground inside of our tech area, and I can go ahead and start defining all of the locations for all of these things, right? So this is going to take a little bit, and yes, it can be kind of a pain, but I do have to go in and set these manually. I mean, technically I wouldn't have to set them manually if I unlocked all the drawers, but it's probably best to do it by hand. So now I still have the other farm that we're going to have to work on, and for this I'm going to use a framed simple compacting drawer. Yes, I have customized the look of this. All of the compacting drawers can also now be customized. Pretty darn cool. And this is going to make sure we have compacted blocks. Oh, that's so good looking. I know you're probably yelling at me right now going like, but it throws off the crosses and everything. You know what? it is what it is. Now, these are only going to hold like 512 items per inventory slot, but I can upgrade that significantly by using like diamond upgrades. I would go to netherite, but we're going to need a lot more smithing templates. So I'm just going to stick with upgrading this with at least one for now. And this allows this to store up to 12,000 of each essence. Oh, and by the way, you're going to love this because, yeah, we can actually see all of the essence now in our applied energetic system, which means we can use this to craft things like diamonds, right? Craft ourselves some gold. And I have a bunch of more essence to still dump in that's inside of my barrels. Now, interestingly enough, how can I, for example, get all of the contents out of this barrel that we've already done? And this barrel, right? Well, we can just add to the side of this. Now, there are also pipes that you can connect to the factory manager, and it works in the same way. They're kind of like cables, but you can also just do this directly connected to the manager. So I want to pull the contents from here into here, and the contents from here into here. And like I said, it's super easy, right? We just need to have the label gun set to A, making sure we're defining it. We right click A here and A here, and then we just right click the center to put that label manager there. And look how quick this is at sending these items. It's a little bit absurd, honestly. Like, just keep that in mind. It's pulling every single one at a time. Like, all of these are moving every single 20 ticks, which is every second, by the way. Like, so much so, we had so much essence. This has already been filled. Oh my goodness. That's another diamond upgrade here that can hold 295,000. That might actually be enough to clear out this barrel. Whew, it is. Goodness. I think, by the way, after it's done, I am going to right click and just make sure to clear these areas, because if you do remove this block, it will probably end up changing everything. So now with the oodles of storage, I think it's time for me to start working on cleaning up my applied energetic system just a teensy bit. And for you, this means absolutely no time at all. But for me, it means setting up quite a few auto crafts for making the things, more of the things that you see behind me, and then just kind of figuring out where I'm going to put them. Oh, and by the way, because we have essence now, I can actually go ahead and get rid of these. Yeah, I just did it. You just seen it. I just broke a flawless. What are you going to do about it? Maybe. I dare you. I dare you. By the way, if you don't want to build all of these by hands, don't forget you have a copy paste gadget for a reason. This thing is so good for stuff like this, right? You can actually just paste it in. And another really neat thing is all of my current autocrafts that I have in here. Yeah, I can just move this with the cut paste tool. Yeah, just like you think. Oh, by the way, since I am managing cables right now, the personal shrinking device might be one of the best things to use for this. And I can actually shrink myself all the way down, apparently to -1, which is very tiny, by the way. I'm almost positive I can slip through, yeah, just about anything. But it also, you can see through walls. But yes, you can change this, right? And you can set it to negative values. I don't even know how negative values work. I believe 1 is default. Oh wait, 1, I am definitely larger. So, okay. So there we go. We have shrunk, and then we are not shrunk. Perfect. So 1 takes you up. Negative is where we want to go. And I like to go like at least half a block, which should, actually, we may have to go even lower than this. Like 80, -80. The GUI, it looks like it's still in works, but I just want to be able to fit in between our cables so we can get in between these areas and work on places. Oh yeah, and speaking of cables, I've started my work on cables, and I have currently just a single dense running down here. This is going to work for now, but my plan is to have like a dense network of cables that are going to be kind of like a bundle of dense cables that are going to run out, and those will eventually terminate at something special that we'll be working on in the future that is from Extended AE, which will allow us to have wireless access to our cables. But that'll extend over here. But I do want the main room to definitely have this just for the looks alone. And right now I'm working on expanding the amount of pattern providers that I have. So now at this point, I have been kind of putting off making this controller for a while, but the max size you can make is this, a 7x7. You can also add controllers to the interior of it too, which we might do later on. But this is the max size, but unfortunately it comes at a cost of running just to have the controllers in general, 400 FE. You can see right here, 408 FE per tick just to do this. So I was kind of putting it off because I didn't have the final things upgraded yet from Power to be able to support that much power, but I definitely will be now that I have access to this. And you can see the little gate right there. Perfect. I do have an intergate now, and this supports 5,000. And by the way, we're inputting a maximum of 10,000 back at our other setup. But yes, I do have the Barney theme going on. I didn't even realize it. I wanted to go green and purple, but I was like, now that I look at it, it's very much reminding me of Barney. But you know what? I'll get over it, right? I'll get over it. I really do like this. I wish you could set a specific color instead of having it rotate here. Oh, I would love to have like a way to do that eventually. Maybe that'll be something that happens eventually. But for right now, we have a giant cube in our tech area. I've already started to lay out some dense cables, which by the way, support 32 channels. Keep that in mind. And that will end up splitting down here. Temporarily, I have this one cable running through, but this is actually going to change very soon as well. And speaking of changing, I think I can do that right now. All I have to do to get this kind of moved over to a new controller is remove the current controller, and then I'll just place a dense cable that's connected here, and then make sure this one's connected. That'll run a main section cable right through here. And what I want to do is down here, I'm going to terminate this cable and this one. And we now have stopped this from working, which is kind of unfortunate because it's just not going to have anywhere to go. I mean, actually, no, it's still going to go somewhere. It just won't be connected to our main system. And then I just want to make sure these cables can get routed down here and connected. That way we have enough channels down in here for all of the things we want. I'm at the point now where I think I can actually move my pattern provider here, and keep in mind these have all of the things in them. And if you want to move this, it shouldn't be a hassle to you to move it. You just want to make sure you move it well after you kind of have all of the infrastructure to power it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click. Now you have to have this set to cut, and you got to be a little bit away to set the original origin point. And so I've done that, and then I'm able to select this, and I can cut this out of existence. Yes, and all of the contents of it are still there. And you can even use this to rotate it and everything, right? So I need to rotate this until I get it to this point right here. And then I'll just adjust it, confirm, and right click to paste. And there it is. Everything is there. And we should also have all of our patterns in here still as well. And also all of our upgrades. And now you can truly start to see what I'm cooking here. Then I'm really starting to get all of this stuff in place. Like, of course, I'm going to be removing these cables and stuff. But the idea is to have like this central hub that is housing all of our cables that are running down the center here, also for looks, right? And the central area will expand off, and later on we can take definitely use of many of the other sides of the controller. So I do want to mention this, and I feel like this is kind of an outlier because this hasn't happened to me before, but I think on that rotation, it didn't like it so much. And these pattern providers in the back, yeah, the patterns did get wiped in those specifically. All the other ones are fine, just that one. Yeah, whoopsie. So maybe not do that. Oh man, to make this even worse, I just realized I didn't even need to rotate it, and it was actually off-centered as soon as I did that. But oh man, things are looking good in here besides that. So I think now at this point, I've got just about everything needed to kind of move on into the future, right? So I am slowly but surely building off my cable bundles. This is what I was meaning by a bundle, right? Where I have the cables that are going to lean down. These are actually going to drop down 2 more blocks, and these will take the place of the ones that are currently existing here. But yeah, you can kind of see it, right? It's going to be like a cube of cables that are going to be running underground. And I'm going to be showcasing this for sure. I'm going to like change the color of the blocks and stuff. And then outside here, they'll end up terminating into what is going to be a new mod we're going to get into, which is Extended AE, which is going to allow me to have wireless access. And man, the automation is really going to start to kind of blow up here soon. And once we do this, you'll realize that channels are really not something we're going to have to really worry about too much. Now, even though this was primarily meant to be about getting ourselves some functional storage drawers set up and getting ourselves like a storage that's going to last us into the future for essences and bees and whatever else we get into, I think that today was also a huge step into the applied energistics realm, because now I have more pattern providers. I still only have 1 co-processing unit as of right now, 1 computer, but we really just need more patterns more than we need more units at the moment. And I am 100% ready to dive into some new mods and also integrate it in with this one. So guys, if you did enjoy today's episode, be sure to click that subscribe button and give this video a huge thumbs up. And with that, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. That huge thanks is going to go out to, if I can spell it, I always butcher this, thanks to Janice. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Guys, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. So be sure to click that subscribe and also follow me over on Twitch if you haven't already, and definitely join that Discord link down in the description below. Thank you all. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, of course, thanks for watching.